All right, so we're going to get started on the information returns, or in this case, the W-9. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to step through, instead of going through the law itself, which we may also do, but what I want to do is look at the W-9 form itself, because it's almost self-explanatory as to what is going on. We have a little bit of knowledge under our belt as far as what a withholding agent is, or a payor. So we kind of know what some of these terms mean now. So we're just going to take a look at the instructions and the W-9 form itself and see what we might be able to glean from those sources. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take a look at Form W-9, and you'll notice that it's a request for taxpayer identification number and certification. So this is something given to you to fill out by someone that's going to be paying you. And usually they have no idea why they're handing it to you. They think that that's what they're supposed to do. And we're going to prove that by the form itself that this is actually done in error in most cases. So, but the main thing I wanted to point to kind of show that the 1099s that people end up sending to you are the result of you filling out a W-9. So the W-9 is what gives them the ability to give you the 1099. If you don't fill out a W-9, they can't legally give you a 1099. But if you look on the W-9 itself, you'll notice right here it says purpose of the form, and it says an individual or entity, the requester, the person that's requesting that you fill out this W-9, who is required to file. So it says they're required to file an information return with the IRS, that they're giving this to you because they need your taxpayer identification. And then it says to report on an information return the amount paid to you, or the other amount reportable on an information return. So there's something going on here, because we need to know what is reportable. Examples of information returns include, but are not limited to, and so here are your information returns, and it's all the 1099s. So that shows that a W-9 is actually something tied to a 1099, and that's why you're always asked to fill out a W-9 before you actually get a 1099 sent to you. And then it says use Form W-9 only if you are a U.S. person, and we've covered what a U.S. person is. It's someone that's receiving money on behalf of a non-resident alien. And then it has your, by signing this form, you are certifying your 10, you're certifying you're not subject to backup withholding. You claim exemption from the backup withholding, which is like a tax treaty. And then this is your tax treaty here, your FICA. But it, again, is for Chapter 3 and 4, which is non-resident aliens. So it tells you on the form itself that that this form is for non-resident aliens. And then it gives you the definition of a U.S. person, and it tells you that they could be a U.S. citizen or a resident alien. And again, we've already kind of covered that. And here, establishing your U.S. status. So the purpose of this form is to establish your status for the purposes of Chapter 3 and 4 withholding. So the form tells you that it's for non-resident aliens when it mentions Chapter 3 and 4. And by the way, those are the only chapters that are mentioned in here. All right, so let's jump over to the instructions, because it gets a little bit more informative when we get to the instructions. So let's look at the purpose of this form. Chapter 3, again, non-resident aliens, provides that non-U.S. persons, whether individuals or entities, are subject to tax on their income that is effectively connected to a U.S. trade or business. So remember how they define the United States. Trade or business we haven't even gotten to yet, but this is basically saying that if the person is not getting payroll, the deductions taken out of their payroll, then they're supposed to fill this out. A properly completed and signed Form W-9 can be relied upon to avoid backup withholding, and we're going to get to that in another video. So if we scroll down a little bit more, we've got Chapter 4. So this was Chapter 3, Now we're on Chapter 4. For Chapter 4 purposes, Form W-9 is used to withhold on payments to foreign financial institutions and non-financial foreign entities. So again, Chapter 4 is for banking stuff, foreign banks, and Chapter 3 is for the non-resident alien stuff where they're making money here and, you know, taking it overseas with them. So we have an individual, and this is the background for Chapter 3, and it goes through some other stuff. We're kind of skipping some of this, but the primary point is to realize that every single instruction that is on a W-9 is for non-resident aliens, Chapter 3 and 4. All right, so Form W-9 or an acceptable substitute is used by persons required to file. So first, you have to be a person that is required to file a return with the IRS to get the payee's correct name and TIN. But it gets even more interesting down here. So let's look at, so this is the background. So I kind of jumped ahead there, but here's the background. U.S. persons, remember what a U.S. persons are subject to tax on worldwide income from all sources, including income generated outside of the United States. It is not illegal for improper for U.S. taxpayers to own offshore structures accounts. So again, it's a U.S. person that has some type of business or relationship with someone outside of the country, or a business that they have formed outside the country. I wanted to kind of point here, substitute Form W-9. This is where the bank comes into this, and gets really interesting. So you may develop and use your own W-9, a substitute W-9, if its content is substantially similar to the official IRS Form W-9 and it satisfies certain certification requirements. And it says it must be signed and dated under penalties of perjury by the payee or person authorized to sign for the payee. You may incorporate a substitute Form W-9 in other forms or other business forms you customarily use, such as account signature cards. There's your bank signature card. It gives you the information that's supposed to be on it, and then it gives you some requirements. How do I know when to use or when to use Form W-9? Use Form W-9 to request the taxpayer identification number of a U.S. person, including a resident alien, and to request certain certifications and claims for exemption. Withholding agents, now you remember what a withholding agent is. It's someone that's in control of a non-resident alien's money. Withholding agents, defined later, may require signed Form W-9 from U.S. exempt recipients to overcome the presumption of foreign status. So they are presuming that you have a foreign status unless, according to them, that you sign a W-9, which actually says that you're receiving money on behalf of a non-resident alien. So, and it goes on, it lists more and more stuff, but you'll notice it's all Chapter 3 and 4 information. There is absolutely nothing on this form that has a look establishing U.S. status for purposes of Chapter 3 and 4 withholding. So every single thing on a W-9 form are for non-resident aliens or U.S. persons who are in between the beneficial owner of money that is going from a payor to whoever this is. And they're treating us as if we are beneficial owners, and actually that's not true. We are treating ourselves as beneficial owners, U.S. persons, by signing this form, and you'll find out later the W-4 might fit the same bill.